Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Archives on this 4th of July. I want to thank the Brass Connection for their great performance earlier. I feel so honored to be here from Fox 5 DC with all of you as we celebrate America the Beautiful on this Independence Day. Happy 241st birthday, America the Beautiful. The National Archives is the permanent home of the Declaration of Independence. For more than 30 years, the National Archives has hosted a ceremony on the 4th of July to celebrate our independence. This is the kickoff event for all of the patriotic activities in our nation's capital. After the ceremony, stay right here and enjoy more live music, followed by the National Independence Day Parade right here on Constitution Avenue, or escape this heat and come inside of the National Archives, see the original Declaration of Independence, and participate in our family fun activities. Later this evening, the National Symphony Orchestra will present our annual concert, A Capitol Fourth, right in front of the U.S. Capitol. After that concert, please enjoy the fireworks on our National Mall. And you may have noticed volunteers carrying the big signs with today's hashtag and other social media information. The National Archives is on Twitter and Instagram as US Nat Archives. Please share your 4th of July experience using the hashtag ArchivesJuly4. And after the ceremony, don't miss our special Declaration of Independence signing booth. You can add your signature and share in all the patriotic fun with everyone on social media using the hashtag #ISignedTheDeclaration. Following the ceremony, the booth will be set up inside the museum's Boeing Learning Center, with other great family activities. So stick around, enjoy the day, and celebrate our independence. Yes. Everybody's already up, but I'd ask you to please rise for the presentation of the colors by the 3rd United States Infantry Old Guard Continental Color Guard with retired Army Master Sergeant Caleb Green singing the National Anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets a red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Let's give another round of applause to Caleb Green and the Color Guard. Now, to give us the sounds of colonial America, we have the 3rd United States Infantry Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. Their uniforms are from the Revolutionary War era, and so is their music. I am pleased to present Private First Class Cedric Phoenix to narrate their performance. Please join me in welcoming the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The United States Army Military District of Washington, under the command of Major General Michael L. Howard, is proud to present the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. The 3rd United States Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard, traces its lineage back to George Washington's original Continental Army and today serves as the Army's official escort to the President of the United States. In 1960, the Fife and Drum Corps was organized to participate in official ceremonies and to revive our country's musical heritage. From the days of the American Revolution through the 19th century, fifes, drums, and bugles were vital to military order and discipline. Field musicians were used to issue commands during battle and to regulate the duty day, signaling when to rise, when to eat, and when the day ends. This morning's show paints a series of pictures from the life of a Continental soldier musician. We open at the beginning of the duty day with a training scene. In the 18th century, signals like attention and breakfast call would have sent the soldiers into action. Here we begin with those signals and accompany their daily training with marching tunes, including drums and guns and simple Joshua. The soldiers of the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps wear uniforms patterned after those of General Washington's Continental Army. In order to be easily identified, military musicians wore the reverse colors of the regiment to which they were assigned. At that time, American infantry soldiers wore blue coats with red facings. Thus, the musicians wore red coats with blue facings. Traditionally, the most skilled drummer was given the title of drum major and was chosen to lead the musicians. Today, the drum major who stands before you wears the light infantry cap and issues silent commands using the espontoon, an adapted 18th century weapon. At the end of the day, troops would often gather around the campfire to relax, and the musicians would provide entertainment. Picture yourselves in such a setting now as we feature the Fife and Bugle groups in a scene reminiscent of the soldier's respite following a challenging day. At a moment's notice, the soldier is summoned from camp, finding himself marching resolutely to the battlefield. As tensions mount, the musicians relay the commander's orders to the troops. Firing commences, and the chaos builds to a fierce, percussive climax. We will now feature the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps drum line in a battle feature. Remembering the fallen soldiers lost in battle, we open our final scene with the mournful tune, Roslyn Castle. The lament is brief, though, as we transition to a celebration of life and close our show with the triumphal Soldier's Return, during which the Corps will honor you with the stately and traditional troop step. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. On behalf of the Old Guard Commander, Colonel Jason T. Garkey, and the Fife and Drum Corps Commander, Chief Warrant Officer 3, Joseph Newby, it has been our pleasure performing for you today.
I know our founding fathers would be so proud today. Could we get another round of applause? The precision, the musicianship, amazing. Well, even though this is the permanent home of the Declaration of Independence, that extraordinary piece of parchment is just one of millions of documents held in trust by the National Archives. The pieces of paper, the photographs, and films in the holdings of the National Archives tell the story of democracy in these United States. And the mission of the National Archives is to make these documents available to us, the American people. And with that, I'd like to introduce a very important person to whom our nation has entrusted the care of the Declaration of Independence. David Ferriero is the Archivist of the United States. David Ferriero was sworn in as the 10th Archivist of the United States in 2009. Previously, he served as the Andrew W. Mellon Director of the New York Public Libraries. Before that, Mr. Ferriero served in top positions at two of the nation's major academic libraries, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Duke University in Durham, North Carolina. Mr. Ferriero holds degrees from Northeastern University in Boston and the Simmons College of Library and Information Science, also in Boston. He also served in the Navy and as a hospital corpsman during the Vietnam War. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Ferriero, Archivist of the United States.
Thank you, Allison Seymour, for joining us for our 4th of July activities. Good morning. Thanks to all of you for joining us in this 241st celebration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And greetings to the folks in 10 of our presidential libraries who are live streaming this ceremony this morning. I'm originally from Beverly, Massachusetts, the birthplace of the American Navy. In Beverly, the 4th of July meant a real bonfire built of kerosene-soaked barrels, fireworks at West Beach, or a trip to Boston for the Boston Pops on the Esplanade, performing the 1812 Overture and fireworks over the Charles River. And you all have your own 4th of July commemorations, a time for friends and family to gather and celebrate summer. My own view of this day changed when I became Archivist of the United States. I realized that we own this day. The 4th of July starts here at the National Archives building. We are the keeper of the original Declaration of Independence, this seminal document signed by our founding fathers. It is enshrined in the rotunda of the National Archives behind me. Just think of the courage it took to sign the Declaration and how important independence from England meant for them to risk their lives. It was an act of treason for those who signed. They became wanted men, traitors to the king. By the end of the Revolutionary War, more than half of the signers suffered direct personal consequences for their support of American independence. We have the signers to thank for the freedom and celebrations we enjoy today. The Declaration of Independence has had an amazing journey since it was signed on August 2nd, 1776. During the Revolutionary War, the Declaration was rolled up and moved from city to city as Congress moved to avoid capture by the British. When the British were burning Washington during the War of 1812, Secretary of State James Monroe directed State Department clerks to gather up the important documents and get them out of town. They wrapped the Declaration and other precious documents in bags of linen, commandeered wagons on the street, and in the dead of night, headed for Virginia with the records of the country. First, they hid the Declaration in an unused grist mill near Chain Bridge in Virginia, then in a private home in Leesburg, until the war was over. During the 1800s, the Declaration was on exhibit for long periods at several locations in Washington where it was exposed to sunlight, fluctuating temperatures, and humidity, all of which took their toll on the document. Finally, officials took note of these effects of aging and wrapped the Declaration and stored it flat at the State Department, where it joined the Constitution until 1921, when President Harding signed an order transferring both of these documents to the Library of Congress. Just before Pearl Harbor and the U.S. entrance into World War II, the library sent the Declaration and the Constitution to Fort Knox for safekeeping, where they remained until September 1944, when they came back to the Library of Congress. Finally, the documents came to their rightful home here at the National Archives. The transfer occurred on December 13th, 1952, with great pomp and circumstance and security as the newly encased Declaration of Independence was carried up these steps with a military procession into the rotunda. And the Declaration of Independence was safe until 2004, when a good treasure hunter, Nicolas Cage, cleverly stole it during a party in this building to protect it from an evil treasure hunter. And our national treasure was miraculously and circuitously restored to its rightful place and now poses the most often question in the rotunda: can we see the back? And I can tell you for certain that the only thing on the back of the Declaration are the words, Original Declaration of Independence, dated 4 July, 1776. Although the traveling days of the Declaration are over, the spirit of the Declaration continues today in many ways, including social media. This year, the National Archives partnered with Slate to co-host the Tiny Declaration Contest on Twitter. Slate originated the contest in 2010. We invited the public to try to capture the essence of the Declaration in 140 characters or less and tweet it out using the hashtag #TinyDeclaration. And I would like to read a couple of notable mentions and then announce the winner. The first is from Rafi Jansian, who tweeted, "It's not UK, question mark, it's US, it's us. It's not UK, it's us." Get it? Yeah. Okay. Next notable mention is from Jamie Erker, who tweeted, 56 patriots, 27 oppressions, 3 inalienable rights, 1 Declaration of Independence, priceless. And now the winning Tiny Declaration tweet is Craig Meter, who wrote, "Yes, we are colonies of yours, but meddling taxes we abhor. Our fury unleashed, breaking our lease, on our own, better for sure." And my thanks to Slate and their editor-in-chief, Julia Turner, for partnering with us, and for author Brad Meltzer for being a guest judge. Just a few reminders. You can share pictures and stories from your 4th of July experience at the National Archives at US National Archives on Twitter and Instagram. Use hashtag ArchivesJuly4. You can also add your own John Hancock to the Declaration of Independence at our special signing booth inside the Boeing Learning Center. Use hashtag #ISignedTheDeclaration to share the patriotic fun with everyone. And I invite you to come inside and see the real thing, the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. Participate in our family activities and check out our exhibit, Amending America. You probably don't know that there have been 11,000 attempts in our history to amend the Constitution, and this exhibit tells that story. Some narrowly missed ratification, others never had a realistic chance. Come in and learn more. And although we don't allow photography in the museum, we've made a special exception for our selfie station, where you can snap a selfie in front of a special backdrop featuring our founding documents. So thanks for coming out today. The National Archives is home of the Declaration of Independence, and July 4th starts here. Now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Laura Murphy. Laura is president of Laura Murphy and Associates. She's an influential national civil rights and civil liberties leader and a policy strategist. She has more than 35 years of experience in government and advocacy, including 17 years as director of the ACLU Legislative Office, where she advanced legislation on free speech, criminal justice reform, national security, reproductive rights, LGBT, and civil rights and internet privacy before Congress and the White House. And Laura is a descendant of one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Philip Livingston of New York. Please welcome Laura Murphy.
Thank you, David Ferriero. You all look beautiful today. Gorgeous. It's an honor to be here. Thomas Jefferson, the primary author, and his compatriots, including John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, wrote the Declaration because they felt disrespected and oppressed. They made every effort to reason with their ruler, King George III of England. But King George was intent upon crushing the oppressed American colonists by closing their ports, undermining their justice system, and sending his formidable army to overtake and, if necessary, kill them. The Declaration represented our ancestors' refusal to be ruled by someone who did not respect them, to revolt against a king who was intent on denying their essential humanity, their life, their liberty, their pursuit of happiness. The Declaration took a stand against injustice, and it created a pathway to the freedoms we now enjoy. I'm hopeful, even in these times, that we can continue to breathe new life in the freedoms articulated in the Declaration. Yet, we have a lot of work to do. These are perilous times in our country and in the world. There is oppression and inequality everywhere. We will only be able to enjoy rights if we actively participate in our democracy. But first, we must think of this document as being a living document. We must recognize that this document has come to mean something more important than class, than race, than country or political party. It declares the right of every human being to live equally and with liberty. We must see that it is not an artifact behind a piece of glass. It is a living, breathing reminder about our pathway to our freedom. And we must know that freedom is an action word. I know you learned in school it was a noun, but I think of freedom as an action word. When we take these actions, we expand our awareness. We create a more just environment for our country and our children. We enable America to regain its stature as a guidepost to the rest of the world. After all, what do we want written on our tombstone? That we were mere bystanders when others tried to erode our freedoms? Or that we were patriots who worked to make the dream of America real? You may ask, how did I get here? My 7th great-grandfather was Philip Livingston, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Philip Livingston was a merchant who made a fortune trading rum, tobacco, and my black ancestors who were his slaves. He was also very civically active. He was the president of the New York Provincial Congress, a state senator and delegate to the Continental Congress. I choose to see my ancestry as an important piece of history, as a lesson in contradictions, and as a personal challenge to make the Declaration truly a pathway for all. As a civil liberties and civil rights activist, I've seen firsthand the difficulties of realizing our rights. Rights ebb and flow. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave African Americans the right to vote, but we were effectively denied voting rights in most parts of the country until 1965. And even today, we face barriers to voting. Invariably, in times of trouble, we have repeatedly returned to the Declaration to support, uplifting, and expanding our collective rights. My experience has helped me look at this document with realistic and sober eyes. The Declaration is our touchstone, even though it was riddled with flaws. It is and was far from perfect. The Declaration did not empower women. It did not eliminate slavery or recognize the rights of Native Americans. It did not self-enforce. It took a revolutionary war and continued domestic upheavals to make it more applicable to all of us. But it is a durable expression of idealism that is used today in this nation and around the world. But what does this document give us? It gives us a pathway to freedom. The Declaration encourages mutual respect for our basic human dignity. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. The founders knew, yes, the founders knew there would be work to accomplish the ideals written on this paper. But those of us who are true patriots, we must consistently reevaluate and recommit to these ideals, lest we lose our essential freedoms. I enlist and implore you to be active in your freedom. We have a roadmap. And here's what we can do. We can vote and make sure the votes of all eligible Americans are not restricted. We can run for office or support those honest people who do and those who engage in civic life. We can be more informed about the foundational documents in this building, the Declaration and the Constitution and its Bill of Rights, to revitalize our ideals. We can recommit to the dream that our founding principles express. So let's step outside our own immediate needs and help others in the pursuit of their freedom and equality. Because when one of us is not free, the ideals, the fundamental belief in human liberty and equality in the Declaration are undermined. Most of all, please do not give in to cynicism. So today I'm hopeful. My years of experience tells me that democracy can prevail, but it will take our continuous work and effort. So here's what I challenge you to do. Walk into this building and take a look at this living document. It is yours to own. See it as a pathway to your freedom. Celebrate what it represents for you and what it represents for our country. Be challenged to make these words meaningful to you and your family and your communities. Be active guardians of liberty, not just bystanders. So, in closing, let's celebrate today. Let's celebrate our collective belief that all mankind are created equal. Let's celebrate with conviction and optimism. Understand that the Declaration is the door to our liberties for the United States, and it serves as an example to the world. May God bless America and all who stand within the grace of her freedom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Murphy. And now, I am happy to introduce to you a very distinguished group of people who will read the Declaration of Independence. Our first three readers are General George Washington, Mr. John Hancock, and Mrs. Abigail Adams. Next, to read the grievances against King George III, we have three of the leaders of the Second Continental Congress, Mr. Thomas Jefferson, Mr. John Adams, and Dr. Benjamin Franklin. These three gentlemen know the words of the Declaration better than anyone else. All three served on the committee to draft the Declaration, and Mr. Jefferson was the primary author. And to read the names of the 56 signers of the Declaration, we are proud to have Private Edward Ned Hector of the 3rd Pennsylvania Artillery Company, free black colonial soldier, patriot, and hero. Finally, we are going to have some audience participation, just as our colonial forefathers would have done. As our special guest read the grievances against King George, I want you to watch out for the town crier, assisted by our volunteers down in the front, holding those signs to tell us when we will express our displeasure. We'll do it with a hearty boo. Can we practice? Boo!
That's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Declaration of Independence.
In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Huzzah! When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it.
Huzzah!
And to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed. But when in a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same objective, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in the direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation until his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature.
Oh!
A right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
Well said, well said.
He has called together legislative bodies in places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures.
He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise. The state, remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
Oh!
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose, obstructing laws for the naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others for the encouraging of their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers.
He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
He has kept among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our government.
He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our legislatures and our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
Ooh. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms.
Huzzah!
Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury.
Ooh.
A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant
Ooh. Down with the
is
tyrant!
unfit to be the ruler of a free people.
Nor have we been wanting in our attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native magnanimity. And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They, too, have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
Huzzah! We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states.
Huzzah! Huzzah!
Huzzah!
Huzzah!
Huzzah! That they
Huzzah!
are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown.
Huzzah!
And that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved.
Huzzah!
And that as a free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. Huzzah!
And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives,
our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Ed. Ready.
Thank you, General Washington, Mr. Hancock, Mrs. Adams, Mr. Jefferson, Mr. Adams, and Dr. Franklin. How stirring it is to hear those words just as they were written 240 years ago. Thank you. Private Hector will now read the names of the colonies and the signers of the Declaration. Like the colonials, we will show our approval by shouting, "Huzzah!" We saw the signs. Let's practice. Huzzah!
Huzzah!
So once again, huzzah!
Huzzah!
Watch for our town crier today, assisted by our volunteers holding the signs to show you when to shout. So, after Private Hector reads all the names of the signers from each state, let's huzzah our approval. All right? But first, once again, with the help of the town crier, let's practice our huzzahs on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Huzzah!
Oh, you might be sent back to England for that kind of huzzah. So let's do it one more time, okay? 1, 2, 3.
Huzzah!
That's better. Now remember, we're going to wait for Private Hector to read all of the names from each state and then shout out our approval with a hearty huzzah. And now, the names of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
These are the names of the people that were willing to sign their own death warrant. You, sir, would you sign your own death warrant? Would you be willing to sign your own death warrant? Or you, these men were willing to do that. Let's show them the proper honor they deserve. President of the Continental Congress, the Honorable John Hancock. Huzzah! Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, and George Walton. Huzzah! North Carolina, William Hoop, Joseph Hughes, and John Penn. Huzzah! South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., and Arthur Middleton. Huzzah! Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Packer, and Thomas Stone, and Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Huzzah! Virginia, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, and Carter Braxton. Huzzah! Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, and George Ross. Huzzah! Delaware. Good. Caesar Rodney, George Reed, and Thomas McKean. Huzzah! New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, and Lewis Morris. Huzzah! New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, and Abraham Clark. Huzzah! New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton, Josiah Bartlett, and William Whipple. Huzzah! Massachusetts, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Payne, and Elrich Gary. Huzzah! Rhode Island. I'm glad you're helping Rhode Island. Stephen Hopkins and William Ellery. Huzzah! Connecticut. Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, and Oliver Walcott. Huzzah! And to attest to this was the Secretary of the Congress, Charles Thompson. Huzzah! And to these people, and to those who gave us our freedom, I say, huzzah! And again, huzzah! And once again, huzzah! Well done!
Thank you, Private Hector. Before we conclude our program this morning, I want to tell you about some of the activities we have inside the National Archives building today. The building closes at 7 p.m., so don't miss out on your chance to see the original Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Magna Carta. We also have special hands-on 4th of July family activities in the Boeing Learning Center until 4 p.m. Make sure you keep sharing at #ArchivesJuly4Fun. And when you're inside the Learning Center, don't forget to sign the special copy of the Declaration of Independence and share a photo of your signature with the hashtag #ISignTheDeclaration. And finally, I want to thank the people who helped make this year's 4th of July celebration possible. Thank you to the National Archives Foundation and to the longtime sponsors of this wonderful event, John Hancock Financial and Dykema, for their major support. The American Historical Theater and our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Ben Franklin, and our representative of the Continental Army, Private Ned Hector, and guest General George Washington, John Hancock, and Abigail Adams. The 3rd United States Infantry Old Guard, Fife and Drum Corps, and the Continental Color Guard. Caleb Green and the Brass Connection. And of course, we couldn't have this celebration without the hard work of the staff and volunteers at the National Archives. A special thank you goes out to our town crier, John Dunlap. Huzzah! Yes, exactly. Finally, the National Independence Day Parade starts at 11:45, right after this ceremony. But before the parade starts, Brass Connection will join us on stage again for some more live music. Be sure to stop by the National Archives store tent for exclusive Independence Day products and support educational outreach and events like this at the National Archives. And I also want to thank you for joining us to commemorate the 241st anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. I wish you all a wonderful 4th of July and hope you'll stay and take part in our activities this afternoon and share your 4th of July experience on social media with the hashtag ArchivesJuly4. God bless all of you and God bless America. And now, welcome back Caleb Green, who will close our program with America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. God bless you.